The moment my son-in-law leaned across the kitchen island and said, "Pack a bag, old lady. You're going to Shady Pines next Tuesday," I did not drop my teacup. I did not even look up from the crossword I had been working on for the better part of an hour. I just finished writing the word patience in 7 across, set my pen down beside the saucer, and took a slow sip of the red rose tea my husband used to buy by the case from the Sobeys on King Street. 43 years I had lived in that house on Wellington Crescent. My husband Gordon and I had bought it in 1982. When the interest rate was so high we thought we'd never pay it off, and we had. We had paid every penny of that mortgage ourselves, with his pension from the mill and my wages from the elementary school where I taught grade 3 for 29 years. Gordon had passed on a cold January morning 4 winters ago, and I had buried him under a maple tree in the Lakeview Cemetery, and I had come home to a house that was finally and terribly mine alone. My daughter Caroline and her husband Bradley moved in with me 6 months after the funeral. She said it was to help me grieve. She said the stairs in their condo were hard on Bradley's knee. She said the kids needed more space. I had 2 grandchildren I adored, Emma, who was 9, and Lucas, who was 6. And I said yes before she had even finished her sentence. I would have said yes to anything that put small hands back in my kitchen again. That was 3.5 years ago. In those 3.5 years, I had paid the property taxes, the heating bill, the water bill, and the home insurance out of my teacher's pension, and the modest investments Gordon had left behind. Bradley had lost his job at the dealership 9 months in and had not found another one since. Caroline worked part-time at a clinic in Oakville, and most of what she earned went toward the lease on a Lexus that Bradley had convinced her they needed. I did not ask them for rent. I did not ask them for groceries. I did not ask them for anything, because they were family, and because in my part of the country, when family comes home, you feed them, and you do not keep a ledger of kindness. But I did notice. I noticed when Bradley started calling my den his office. I noticed when Caroline stopped asking me if I minded things being rearranged in my own kitchen. I noticed when Emma came home from school one afternoon and asked me, in the careful voice of a child who has been told to ask whether her friend Sophie could have her birthday party in our living room, and the hour did not include me. I noticed, and I said nothing, because Gordon used to tell me that some wars are won by the one who holds her tongue the longest. The kitchen island where Bradley said those words to me had been Gordon's anniversary gift on our 25th. He had saved for 8 months and surprised me with it the Saturday before Thanksgiving. It was solid maple, with a butcher block top that had a small burn mark near the edge where Gordon had once set down a hot pan in a hurry. I ran my thumb over that burn mark now, the way a woman runs her thumb over a wedding ring, and I took another sip of my tea. "Pardon me, dear," I said. My voice was perfectly calm. This is one of the gifts of age. You learn that the first response is almost never the right one, and you buy yourself a little time by pretending not to have heard. "Shady Pines," Bradley said again, louder, as if I were deaf instead of listening. "The assisted living place out in Burlington. Caroline and I have been looking into it. It's a beautiful facility. You'll love it." "Have you?" I said. "It's for the best, Margaret." He had started calling me Margaret about 2 years in. Before that it had been Mom, and before that, when he was first courting Caroline and still on his best behavior, it had been Mrs. Harding. Now it was Margaret, spoken flat and a little tired, the way you speak to a slow clerk at the bank. Caroline came in from the back porch with Lucas on her hip. She had been hiding out there, I realized. She had known what Bradley was going to say, and she had taken our grandson outside so she would not have to see my face when he said it. I looked at my daughter. I looked at the little boy in her arms, who had my husband's same blue eyes. I looked at the burn mark on the butcher block, and I decided, in that long second, that I was not going to cry, and I was not going to shout, and I was not going to give either one of them the satisfaction of a single broken word. "Tuesday," I said. "Tuesday," Bradley nodded. "I've already spoken with the intake coordinator. She was very helpful." "Have you now, Mom?" Caroline said. Her voice was thin. "It's really nice there. We toured it. They have a garden. They have bingo on Wednesdays. You'd make friends." "I have friends, dear." "Mom, please don't make this harder than it has to be." I stood up from the stool. I carried my teacup to the sink, the way I had carried 10,000 teacups to that same sink, and I rinsed it, and I set it upside down on the drying rack. I picked up my cardigan from the back of the chair, and I slid it on, one careful arm at a time. "I think I'll go for a walk," I said, and I did. I walked out the front door of my own house, past the peony bed I had planted the year Caroline was born, past the Canadian flag Gordon had put on a pole by the driveway after his brother came home from a tour in Bosnia, and down the long sidewalk toward the corner. I did not look back. I did not let my hand shake, and I sat down on the bench beside the war memorial, and I put my hands flat on my knees and breathed until my chest stopped hurting. Then I took out my phone, and I called Ellen Whitfield. Ellen had been a grade above me at Teachers College in the 60s. She had gone on to law school in her 40s after her own husband passed, and she had built a small practice in family and estate law that she still ran 3 days a week out of an office above the Scotiabank on Lakeshore Road. She was 76, sharp as a well-kept kitchen knife, and the closest thing I had to a sister. She answered on the second ring. "Margaret?" "Ellen," I said. "I need to see you today. It can't wait until Monday." There was a pause. I could hear her moving, probably clearing papers off a chair. "Come now. I'll put the kettle on. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I did not go back to the house. I walked to the bus stop on the corner of Dundas, and I took the bus the 3 stops to Lakeshore, and I climbed the narrow staircase to Ellen's office with my purse held tightly against my side. She was waiting at the top of the stairs in a navy cardigan, and her reading glasses pushed up into her gray bob, and she took one look at my face and said, "Oh, Meg, what have they done?" I told her. I told her all of it, in order from the day Caroline had called me about Bradley's layoff to the moment at the kitchen island an hour before. I told her about the property taxes I had paid for 3.5 years, and the groceries and the new furnace I had installed last winter while Bradley was driving a leased car he could not afford. I told her about the den that had become his office, and the living room where my grandchildren now asked permission to stand. And I told her about Shady Pines and Tuesday, and the way my daughter had carried her own son out to the back porch so she would not have to see me cry. I did not cry, though, not in Ellen's office. That was not the kind of thing I did in front of people, even Ellen. When I was finished, Ellen pushed her glasses back down onto her nose and opened a legal pad and picked up a pen. "All right," she said. "Let's talk about what you want. Not what you feel, Margaret, what you want." And I told her. I told her I wanted my house back. I wanted it back clean and quiet, the way Gordon and I had left it. I wanted my grandchildren to still be welcome in it, but I wanted their parents to understand that being welcome and being in charge were not the same thing. I wanted no shouting. I wanted no police. I wanted nothing that Emma or Lucas would remember as ugly when they grew up. I wanted my name, and only my name, on the deed, the utilities, and the dignity of the house at 87 Wellington Crescent. Ellen wrote it all down. Then she looked up at me. "Margaret," she said, "the house is already in your name. Yours alone. I know because I helped Gordon draft the will 6 years ago, and nothing has changed since. So what we're really talking about here is whether those two are tenants, guests, or trespassers. And that depends on whether they have paid you anything, whether there's a written agreement, and whether you have asked them to leave in writing. There is nothing in writing, I said, and I have never asked them to leave. I have never asked them for $1. She nodded slowly. In this province, that means they're what we call gratuitous occupants. They have no tenancy, they have no lease, they have permission, and permission can be withdrawn. The law is on your side, Meg, but we have to do it properly. No drama, no shouting, no locked doors in the middle of the night. Just paper. Paper? I said. Paper, she said. A formal notice to vacate, delivered by a process server, a reasonable timeline, because you have grandchildren involved and no judge wants to see little ones on a cold sidewalk in October. 30 days, I'd say. Maybe 60, if you want to be generous. 30, I said. She looked at me over her reading glasses. 30, then. Ellen, I said. One more thing. Yes, dear? I do not want to be there when the server comes. I do not want to be in the house. I want it to arrive the way bad weather arrives, announced but not by me. She smiled, for the first time since I had walked in. It was a small, dry, lawyer's smile. I can arrange that, she said. I left her office at 3:45. I did not go home. I walked down to the Holiday Inn near the harbor, and I asked the young woman at the front desk for a room for 3 nights. She tilted her head slightly, the way young people do when an older woman travels alone without luggage, and she asked if I was all right. I'm fine, dear, I said. I just need a quiet place to think. She gave me a room on the 4th floor, with a window that looked out over the lake. I paid with the credit card Gordon and I had kept for emergencies, the one Caroline did not know existed. I took the elevator up, and I sat down on the edge of the bed, and I finally let myself cry. Not for long, maybe 10 minutes. Then I washed my face, and I called the little drugstore on the corner and asked them to deliver a toothbrush, a nightgown, and a package of those plain oatmeal cookies I like. When it arrived, I tipped the delivery boy $5, and I ate 3 cookies sitting by the window, watching the lake turn slate gray in the evening light. My phone rang 4 times between 6 and 8. 3 times it was Caroline. Once it was Bradley. I did not answer. At 8:15, I texted Caroline a single line. I am safe. I will be in touch. Please do not worry. Then I turned the phone face down on the nightstand, and I slept better than I had slept in 3.5 years. The next morning, I met Ellen at a small breakfast place on Brant Street. She had already drafted the notice. I read it twice, slowly, and I signed it at the bottom with the same pen I had used to write Patience in the crossword the morning before. Ellen folded it into an envelope, slid it into her leather briefcase, and said, Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. You won't have to lift a finger. Thank you, Ellen. Oh, Meg, you don't thank a friend for this kind of work. You just pour her an extra cup of tea next time she comes by. I stayed at the Holiday Inn through the weekend. I read 3 paperbacks from the little gift shop in the lobby. I ate dinner in the hotel restaurant, where the waitress called me on and kept my water glass full. I walked along the lake in the mornings and watched the geese gathering to fly south. I let my phone ring when it rang. I did not open a single one of the messages. On Monday morning at 9 o'clock, a process server in a gray suit rang the doorbell of 87 Wellington Crescent. I know the exact time because Ellen called me at 9:04 and said, It's done. He signed for it. No incident. Your son-in-law looked like he had been hit with a shovel. And Caroline? She was in the kitchen. She came to the door after. She took the copy with both hands. She asked the server if there was some mistake, and the server said, He said, Ma'am, I'm just the messenger. And then he wished her a good day, and he left. I closed my eyes. I was sitting at the little desk by the hotel window, and the sun was coming through in pale October stripes, and I could feel something in my chest that I had not felt in a very long time. It was not triumph. It was not even relief, exactly. It was the quiet that comes back into a house after you have finally turned off a radio that has been playing too loud in a room you did not want to enter. Thank you, Ellen. Margaret, the phone is going to start ringing now. I know. You don't have to answer it. I know. But if you do, stay in the room you are in. Do not go home yet. Not until Saturday at the earliest. Let them have their panic. Let them organize themselves. Do not let them do it with you in the house. I won't. And I didn't. Caroline called me 42 times that week. I counted later because I am a woman who taught grade 3 for 29 years and I am, at my core, a person who counts things. I answered on the 7th call, on Tuesday evening. Mom, she said. She was crying. Mom, what is this? What did you do? I did what your husband told me to do, dear. I packed a bag. Mom? Caroline. Is your husband in the room? A pause. No. He's downstairs. Then listen to me carefully, because I am only going to say this once. I have lived in that house for 43 years. I have paid every bill in that house since the day your father died. I have raised you in that house, and I have welcomed your husband into it, and I have fed your children in it, and in return I have been told to pack a bag and go to a facility in Burlington so that my own daughter and her unemployed husband can have the run of what is mine. I will not be doing that. You and Bradley have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. The notice is legal. Ellen Whitfield drew it up. If you fight it, you will lose, and it will cost you money you do not have. Mom, please. I am not finished, dear. Emma and Lucas are welcome in my house any time they want to come. They are my grandchildren, and nothing changes that. You are welcome too, when you are ready to come as my daughter, and not as a woman who stood in the backyard with my grandson on her hip so she would not have to see my face. Bradley is not welcome, not this year, maybe not ever. I will decide that later, when I am less tired. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Just breathing. Did he tell you what he called me? I said finally. At the island? No. Old lady. Pack a bag, old lady. You're going to Shady Pines next Tuesday. There was a long silence. Then, very quietly, my daughter said, Oh, Mom. Yes, I'm so sorry. I know you are. That is a separate conversation, and we will have it one day. But not tonight, Caroline. Tonight you need to start packing. I ended the call, and I turned the phone face down, and I went downstairs to the hotel dining room, and I ordered the fish and chips and a small glass of white wine, which is something Gordon and I used to split on Friday nights when the children were small and the world was still soft at the edges. Bradley's reaction was not as measured. He sent me 11 text messages over the next 3 days, each one longer and angrier than the last. He said I was ungrateful. He said I was a bitter old widow who was going to die alone. He said he had been like a son to me, and I was throwing him out on the street. He said the house was as much theirs as mine because they had built a life in it. He said I would regret this. He said his lawyer would be in touch. His lawyer was not in touch because, as Ellen explained when I forwarded her the texts, no lawyer in this province was going to take that case on contingency, and Bradley did not have the money to pay one by the hour. I saved every one of those text messages. Ellen had told me to, just in case, dear. Men like that tend to escalate. He did not escalate in the end. On the 12th day after the notice was served, Ellen called me again. Margaret, they have found a rental. A townhouse in Milton. Bradley's brother co-signed. They'll be out by the 21st. That's 9 days early. It is. Thank you, Ellen. Margaret, she said, there's something else. Caroline came to my office yesterday. I gripped the phone a little tighter. Alone? Alone. She asked if she could see a copy of your will. I told her that your will was your business, and she would have to ask you directly. She said she understood. Then she sat in my client chair for a long time and she said, I don't think I even recognized what was happening, Ellen. I don't think I let myself. And what did you say to her? I said that the hardest thing in the world is to see clearly the people we love when they are behaving badly, and that recognizing it now is better than recognizing it never. And then I gave her a tissue, and I sent her home. I sat with that for a long moment. Thank you, Ellen, for all of it. Go home on Saturday, Meg. The locksmith I called will be there at 10. He'll change every lock in the house. You'll have the only keys. Do you understand me? The only keys. I understand. On Saturday, October 22nd, I paid my hotel bill, and I took a taxi back to Wellington Crescent. The house was quiet. The driveway was empty. Someone had left a box of my best dishes on the front porch, and a note in Caroline's handwriting that said, We took only what was ours. I'm sorry, Mom. Call me when you're ready. I carried the box inside, and I set it on the kitchen island, and I ran my thumb over the burn mark on the butcher block, and I stood in my own kitchen for the first time in 9 days. The locksmith came at 10. His name was Daniel, and he was a quiet man about my own son Michael's age, if Michael had lived past the age of 3. He worked steadily through the morning, changing the front door, the back door, the garage side door, and the basement walkout. He wrote the address of a good alarm company on a slip of paper and handed it to me before he left. It's a lovely house, ma'am. Thank you, dear. I've lived here a long time. It shows, he said, in a good way. When he was gone, I put on the kettle. I opened the cupboard where I keep the good china, the set Gordon's mother had given us on our wedding day, and I took down a single cup and saucer. I made a pot of red rose. I carried it to the sitting room, to the wing-back chair by the window, the one with the worn armrest where my hand always rests, and I turned on the evening news. The volume was exactly where I wanted it. That Sunday, Emma and Lucas came over with Caroline. Bradley stayed in the car at the end of the driveway, and I did not invite him in. Caroline carried a tin of homemade shortbread, and she stood on my porch with her eyes red and her chin up, and she said, Mom, thank you for letting us come. You're my daughter, I said. You don't need to thank me for that. We did not talk about it that day. We baked with the children. Emma rolled out the dough, and Lucas pressed the cookie cutter into the softness with both small hands, and I taught them, as my own mother had taught me, how to crimp the edge of a pie shell with your thumb and forefinger so it looks like a little rope. When they left, Caroline hugged me at the door for a long time, and she said, very softly, I'll call you next week, Mom, if that's okay. That's okay, I said. She did call. And the week after that, and the week after that, slowly. And with a lot of quiet between us, we began to find our way back. Bradley and I did not speak. He moved to Alberta in the spring for a job at a dealership in Red Deer, and Caroline stayed in the townhouse in Milton with the children, and in June she filed for a separation. I did not celebrate that. I did not comment on it at all. Some things are not mine to celebrate. It is October again now. A full year has passed. The peonies in the front bed have come and gone, and the maple on my front lawn is the color of an old copper kettle, and tomorrow my grandchildren are coming to carve pumpkins on the kitchen island, where my son-in-law once told me to pack a bag. I think sometimes about that afternoon, about how close I came to doing what he told me to do, about how many women my age, in houses like mine, all across this country, have been told some version of the same thing by people they love, and have simply packed because they did not know they were allowed to do anything else. So I will say it here. For any woman who is listening, the way I wish someone had said it to me 3.5 years ago when Caroline first asked if she could come home. Your house is your house. Your name on the deed means something. Kindness to your children is a gift, not a deed transfer. You are not required to earn your place in a home you built. If someone tells you to leave a room, and that room is in your own home, you do not have to go. And if you do go, you do not have to stay gone. The law in this country is quieter than people think, and it is more often on the side of the woman in the wingback chair than you have been led to believe. And you, whoever you are allowed to sit by your own window, in your own house, at the volume you prefer, with a cup of tea poured from a pot that is yours, and watch the evening news in peace. That is not too much to ask. That is only and exactly enough.